Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ثم ما بعد ما شاء الله ما شاء الله ما شاء الله. Welcome back to the Halaqah series. It started up again, and today's conversation is something pretty special, bi'idhnillah. Now, prior to introducing what it is and everything, want to kindly note, for those of you who took the time out of your day to be with us, truly, truly appreciate it. There's nothing like being in person. Those of you online, salam, you're missing out though when you're here in person. Now, I'm going to be doing a lot of I would have a neck workout, so if I don't mind kindly asking those over here to just move a little bit towards the middle here, be much, much appreciated. And the sisters that are in the dark, it's up to you. You want to come to the light, so that way I don't have to get in there. It'd be much appreciated. MashaAllah. Nur ala nur, you know how it is? From the darkness to the light, bi'idhnillah, that's the idea. Much, much appreciated. So, the topic for today is Muslim contributions to the world. Now, I need to set the stage first, because for twofold. One, here in Ontario, October has been recognized as Islamic Heritage Month. It's a month that Ontario recognizes, which is great. MashaAllah. Now some might say, oh, you don't need No, we take what we can. People are our neighbors, they've taken the time out, they didn't have to, and here we are now, MashaAllah. October is designated as Islamic Heritage Month. But before we get into the nitty gritty of today, I have something, come Hazm. MashaAllah, assalamu alaikum, Hafid Hazm. I need to get something off my chest. These few minutes I have, I'm going to go off on a little rant. MashaAllah, Hafid Muhammad, assalamu alaikum. I know I'm smiling now, but I'm going to go on a little rant here to provide the bedrock for our conversation. Muslims are backwards. Muslims don't contribute anything to society. Muslims are the ones that are holding us back. Hands up if you've heard this before. And if you've heard this before, you've heard of this before. Where did this come from? Where did this rhetoric come from? Where did this narrative come from? That Muslims are backwards, that they don't contribute anything to the world. They're still stuck in the ancient times. Where did this come from? I argue, respectfully, this is just my own analysis. Collectively, as an ummah, we are terrible at marketing Islam. We are terrible collectively at marketing Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as rahmatan lil alameen. You don't believe me? Try this experiment. Go outside, talk to anyone. Just ask him one simple question. Is Islam positive or negative? What do you think people would say, generally speaking? Hands up if you think that people would say Islam is positive. Look, everyone's hands are down. How many of you would say that Islam is negative? Why is this? How come? If Islam is the truth, if the Quran came down from the heavens, if Islam is truly the way of life, why is it that most people, or many people, look at it negatively? The fact of the matter is, Muslims, collectively, including myself, are not good at marketing Islam. Now, one key fact about this is the following. You see, many Muslims growing up, it may be a cultural thing, something I've noticed as an observation. They don't like to speak about their accomplishments. You know what I'm talking about. They're scared or would rather keep things to themselves. Am I right? You see this. You're not taught to be arrogant or proud. No. We don't want kibr, we don't want, hasadat, we don't want da'in, we don't share what you have. Don't be humble. Be humble. The fact of the matter is this. When we're constantly humble and we are constantly away from the game, who is going to talk on our behalf? There's a difference. There's a fine line between arrogance and confidence. Many people confuse the two. There's a difference between arrogance and confidence. Arrogance is when you say something and you have no proof. Confidence is when you say something and you have proof. Let's give an example with sports. Maybe some of you here are basketball fans. If someone was to approach you and say, "You think you can beat me one-on-one?" Some might say, "Yeah, I can, for sure. Yeah, you know what? I will definitely give you a touchdown." The person has no idea what basketball is. This is arrogance. You have no proof. Versus, if someone was to say, "Can you beat me one-on-one?" and you say, "Yeah, I've been playing basketball since I was 10 years old. I can definitely beat you one-on-one. I have a track record." Do you see the difference here? Arrogance versus confidence. Arrogance is when you have no proof. Confidence is you have proof. Are we with me so far? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us right in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. What does Allah tell us? ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah is telling us in the Quran, right in our face, this is the book. The Quran is the truth. This is it. Allah is talking about us and how we can present the Quran. How many of us are shy to talk about the Quran? Hey, if you and I don't have the knowledge, it's best not to. But even if you have a little bit of knowledge, even if you have a little bit, how many of us would rather shy away? How many of us can confidently say that this book is the truth? It is the book of guidance. This is the answer to humanity's problems. But how many Muslims shy away from having that conversation and being proud because you have proof? The Quran tells us time and don't believe blindly. There's proof. So this is the bedrock of our conversation. This is a little mini rant to get off my chest. Because why are we having this conversation of Muslim contributions to the world? People should already know it. People should already know it. If we're not marketing ourselves, we're not marketing Islam, we're not marketing the golden history of Islam and what Muslims have, we shouldn't even have this conversation. But alas, let's begin, bi'idhnillah. You see, Rasulullah, he said that Islam started as something strange and it will return as something strange. So we're living in strange times, but let's see if we can reinvigorate the love. So now let's dive in, little by little. I'm going to give you a buffet, a little tour. Think of this as a tour guide. What have Muslims contributed to the world? And you will be shocked. You will be astounded. Your jaw will drop to see and recognize just how much of the societal benefits we have today. Gotta give credit to the Muslims. You gotta thank the Muslims for many of the things that we have today. So let's begin with none other than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let's begin from that, and then we're gonna go further and further. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let's talk about social justice, for example. You know, in today's time, we're here in Canada and in North American society, and it's around the world. Is social justice a constant struggle? Yes or no? Yes or no? It's always a struggle. There's always a battle. I mean, come on. Everyone's equal. This should be just like that. But look at what the Prophet ﷺ said over 1400 years ago. In his farewell sermon, the last sermon he gave before he left this world, what did he say? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, all mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab has any superiority over an Arab. Also, a white has no superiority over black, nor does black have any superiority over a white, except by piety and good action. This was said over 1400 years ago. And until today, in America, for example, people are still having problems left, right, and center. We got to admit, we've come a long way. Just go ask 100 years ago how society was. It paints a very bleak picture. But subhanAllah, look at how the Prophet ﷺ, he's saying this as social justice. Now let me give you another thing. SubhanAllah. When I say a prestigious university, what is the most prestigious university that you can think of? Feel free to shout it out. Harvard, that was the first one. What else? Can't list anything, yeah? Waterloo, fair enough. What else? Give me one more. Oxford. The first was Harvard. Okay, so let's see. I want to share with you one thing. I want to ask Masha Hafid Hazam, you were the one who said this? Alright. There's an ayah of the Quran. It's from Surah An-Nisa. Can I kindly ask you, MashaAllah, Tabarakallah, I have it here with me. Would you be able to grace us with your recitation of it? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You'll see where I'm going with this.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلوا أو تعرضوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا.
MashaAllah. Takbir. Allahu Akbar. Hafid Hazam. May Allah bless you and your family. Bi'idhnillah. This is from Surah An-Nisa. Now, in Taraweeh, you might gloss over this. When you're reading Quran, you might skip over it. Okay, it's nice. But what if I were to tell you that those verses are written on Harvard's main gate? The university, Harvard University, has those ayahs on the main gate. Did you know this? Hands up if you knew this. How many of you see? I can see some stunned faces. According to the official website in Harvard, Ask.Library, this is part of Harvard. The question was asked, which Islamic or Quranic verse or quote is written on Harvard's main gate? The Quran verse is not actually at Harvard's main gate, but has recently been posted on the entrance wall to the Faculty of Law School, along with two other quotes that at best encapsulate the idea of justice. The verse taken from Surah An-Nisa reads as follows. This is what they wrote. O ye who believe, stand out firmly for justice as witnesses to Allah, even as against yourselves or your parents or your kin, and whether it is against rich or poor, for Allah can best protect both. This is written in Harvard. This is the influence in modern times. If people are saying, oh, this is influence, oh, let's talk about, this is today. This is today. You see? So now, that's one example. How about another example of what Islam has contributed or what Muslims have contributed to the world? Again, this is from Quran. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned over 1400 years ago about hygiene. Now for those kids, there are some youth here. How many times do your parents tell you to wash your hands? Do your parents tell you to wash your hands? All the time? How about, in the back? Mothers, do you tell your kids all the time to wash their hands? Yeah? Okay, my own mom, mashallah, okay. So yeah, I'm telling you, Islam talked about cleanliness. Now you might think it's obvious. Allah tells us in the Quran, truly Allah loves those who turn to Him constantly, and He loves those who keep themselves pure and clean. What if I told you once upon a time that washing your hands was an outlandish idea? In fact, I don't know if you know this, but there was a Hungarian physician in the 19th century. In the 1800s, you won't believe this, In the 19th century, see, look at this. In the 19th century, he discovered that hand washing could dramatically reduce the spread of infection in hospitals. He introduced mandatory hand washing with a chlorinated solution before examining patients. The death rates dropped dramatically, but his ideas were met with resistance from the medical community, who found it hard to accept that they were causing harm. Frustrated by the rejection, he died in 1865 in a mental asylum. Do you believe this? The man who said that you should wash your hands before you perform surgery, the community in the 1800s said this is blasphemous. They drove him to an asylum, and that's where he died. The Quran, 1,400 plus years ago, is saying be clean. And now it's like brand new. Subhanallah. What has Islam given to the world? Cleanliness, hygiene. Here's another issue in today's time. The gender issue. You ever see now the difference between men and women? Women constantly fighting on the front lines, demanding equality. You see this happening, yes or no? Women, the sisters, do you see this always happening, yes or no? Oh, there's a patriarchy, there's a society, women are being pushed down, we're not. Islam, over 1400 years ago, mentioned and identified women as people. Allah tells us again in Surah An-Nisa. By the way, what does Nisa mean? Women. Allahu Akbar. In that time, Allah is telling us, and do not wish for that by which Allah has made some of you exceed others. For men is a share of what they have earned, and for women is a share of what they have earned. And ask Allah of His bounty. Indeed, Allah is ever knowing of all things. What is crucial to highlight here is that Islam always existed, but the Quran specifically, over 1400 years ago, treated women as human beings. Now again, you might look and laugh and say, what is this? This is obvious, come on. But look at this. In 1913, the Law Society refused to allow 4 women to sit in the Law Society examinations. The woman took the case to the Court of Appeal in Beb versus the Law Society. The Court of Appeal upheld the Law Society's decision, and that it was held that women were not persons within the meaning of the Solicitors Act of 1843. Women were not even considered as people. In 1843, this spilled over so much. What we are benefiting from today, again, it's not by accident, it's not oversight. It took a long time. The Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal is identifying women, as people. Can you believe this? So what has Islam contributed to the world? How about the fact of treating women as human beings? Alright, so this is one thing. Another thing, we're living in a society now, people are talking about capitalism left and right. Oh, we're living in an unjust world. Oh, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Well, what has Islam done? Introduced zakah. A tax for the needy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, establish prayer and give zakah. There's a connection here. Iqama salah wa atu zakah. There's always a connection between salah and zakah. And listen to today's time. Okay, you might think, okay, well, Robin Hood, oh, we're not stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. And by the way, Robin Hood is a fictional character. Sometimes I talk to somebody about that, like, oh, where's Robin Hood today? I'm like, wait a minute, he's a fictional character, right? That's like asking for Aladdin. Okay, so just to be aware. So the people are asking, well, what did Islam give to the world? Well, that zakah system, now if you want to translate it in today's times, listen to this. There's this concept today It's called Universal Basic Income, UBI, which is basically the concept of a government program in which every adult citizen receives a set amount of money regularly. The goals of a basic income system are to alleviate poverty and replace other need-based social systems that potentially require greater bureaucratic involvement. The idea of a universal basic income has gained momentum in the US as automation increasingly replaces workers in manufacturing and other sectors of the economy. Over 1400 years ago, to distribute wealth fairly, zakah. And now we have universal basic income. Talk about ahead of the times. Now, what about hospitals? What if I told you that yeah? All right, hang on. I'm just going to go through this and then inshallah I'll go for it. Hold on to that thought though. How many of you have ever had to visit a hospital for a loved one or yourself? I myself had to go through that too. What if I told you, thank the Muslims for that? What if I told you Muslims were the ones who conceived the idea of a hospital? At that time, they had something called Martisans, or in Arabic, Dar al-Shifa. Dar al-Shifa. This is what in the English it says either Martisans or Martisans. Forgive me, I gotta make sure I get that straight. But there are basically hospitals with dedicated wards, medical training, and free healthcare for all. As Canadians, that's one of the most proud things that we can say, right? Oh, free healthcare, right? I can hear it loud and clear. Nothing is really free, but you know how it is. The hospital system set up during the Islamic Golden Age inspired today's global healthcare system, particularly the concept of specialized departments and free universal access to healthcare. The next time you visit a hospital, the next time that you see someone in need in the hospital, subhanAllah, back then, institutionalizing a hospital, thank the Muslims. Now let's go deeper into this. Those are concepts. What did we talk about? We talked about social justice. We talked about hygiene. We talked about women considered as people. We talked about tax for the needy. We talked about the hospital. What have Muslims done? Well, Muslims have done a lot. But what if I were to go even deeper than that? What if we were to go even further than that? Let's try to look at specific individuals and see what they have done. Speaking of the hospital, has anyone here ever needed surgery before? Anyone needs surgery, subhanAllah? Or do you have a family member that needed surgery before? It's not fun, is it? Very emotionally taxing, very stress-inducing. But what if I were to tell you that the man who is considered to be the pioneer of surgery was Muslim? Al-Zahrawi. He is known as the father of surgery. He developed over 200 surgical tools and techniques, such as catgut stitches and forceps. Many of his surgical instruments he designed are still used today. For example, anyone's ever heard of dissolvable stitches? You have to stitch it and then it dissolves on its own. He came up with that. Subhanallah. And it became a standard in modern surgery. But when did he do it? 936 AD. Back then, that's how when he was around. The next time you see a surgery operation, thank a Muslim. Thank Al-Zahrawi, the father of surgery. Now, what about vacations? You want to go on a vacation, right? You want to be able to fly? You want to go to your country? You want to visit your family and friends? What do you need to do? You're not going to swim for it. You got to hop on a plane. But what if I told you that the one who started this process, Abbas ibn Firnas, who's usually credited with starting the airplane? The Wright brothers, yes? I'm not saying they're the wrong brothers, but what I'm saying is, before the Wright brothers, did you know the story of Abbas ibn Firnas? In his most famous experiment, he constructed a flying machine inspired by the study of birds. At the age of 65, he designed a large bird-like apparatus made of silk and wood. And according to historical accounts, he managed to stay aloft, like stay in the air for a few moments, demonstrating controlled gliding. However, when he landed, he crashed heavily, injuring his back. He was the first to demonstrate that you could fly. So the next time you're on the airlines and thinking about who inspired this, Abbas ibn Firnas was the first to say that we could fly. SubhanAllah. And look, what price did he pay? He injured his back. He injured his back for us and for the future. Now let's talk, we mentioned before about Harvard University. But what if I told you that the first university was made by a Muslim? A Muslim started this concept of university. You know, nowadays people are saying, my son, my daughter, go university, go learn. Fatima al-Fihri. She's originally from Tunisia, but this university established in Morocco in 859 CE. Look at this. It initially served as a place of worship and religious instruction, but it quickly grew into a larger institution where students can study a wide range of subjects. Theology, law. What you know of a university today is because of her. And even in 1963, it was officially recognized by UNESCO and the Guinness World Records as the oldest continuing operating degree-granting university in the world. And it still holds up today. I'm just giving you what I know here from what I see. Until today, they're still giving out diplomas and this. It's the oldest operating university. So when you say Harvard, when you say Princeton, when you say Yale, when you say UFT, when you say Waterloo, when you say all the universities that you can think of, who started it all? A sister, a Muslim sister. Thank the Muslims. And I'll end off part of this conversation because I know you had some questions with one more. But before I talk about the one more, I just want to make sure that everyone's awake. Can somebody tell me from now? I know I gave you a buffet, just kind of giving you a tour guide of what are some things. What are some things that we talked about how Muslims contributed to the world? What's something? Yep. Hospitals. What else? University. Yes. What else? Science? Yes, mashallah. What else? Hygiene. Yes, we'll do. So again, don't worry, inshallah khair. Again, 8:15, all right. What else? What else? Sisters, please tell me something that social justice. What else? Zakah. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Women's rights. Yes, that's what I was going for the beginning. But khair, inshallah. That's it. So can we agree from now that Muslims have contributed to the world? Can we say that now, at least with confidence, that we have a rich history? The things that we're benefiting from today, are we talking about no, that we're benefiting right now? Okay. There is this one last thing I want to share with you all. We're talking about education. We're talking about contributions. There is this one place in Baghdad, in Iraq. It had an institution. And this institution was called Bayt al-Hikmah. Bayt al-Hikmah. Hikmah means what? Wisdom, yes? Bayt, roughly translated, a house of wisdom. What was this? Let me share it with you. One of the most significant achievements of Bayt al-Hikmah was the translation movement, which involved the systemic translation of ancient works from different languages, primarily Greek into Arabic. This initiative played a critical role in preserving the knowledge of earlier civilizations, especially the works of Greek philosophers like Aristotle, Plato, Hippocrates. You heard of these philosophers? Have you heard of this? Aristotle, Plato, you heard of that? Now, side note here, especially with philosophy, we don't need to get into the nuances. For us is to say that subhanAllah, the Muslims could have easily said, no, you know what, we don't need that, just psh. They preserved it. They wrestled with it. They translated it. That's why we have it here today. So they translate into Persian, Indian, and Chinese scholars, Greek philosophy, so we talked about it. One more significant contribution of the House of Wisdom, Bayt al-Hikmah, was the development of the science. For those who love science, you gotta listen up here. You know the scientific method? You heard of this before. The scientific method was developed and originated from this house. The scholars in Baghdad emphasized observation, experimentation, and critical thinking, which are the foundations of modern science. Laying the groundwork, laying that foundation. You're talking about the scientific method. You know how many arguments are happening right now between science versus religion? And they're discussing back and forth, buddy. You know that very scientific method that you're talking about? Guess who started it? Thank a Muslim. How funny is that? You're trying to weaponize something that Muslims have given you. You see where I'm going with this? But I'm going to end on a little more sinister note. It all sounds nice and well, right? All the things that we talked about. We talked about how wonderful contributions Muslims have provided in society. But let's end off on a sinister note. What happened to this Bayt al-Hikmah? What happened to this grand institution? The Mongols sacked Baghdad's great libraries, including the famous Bayt al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom, which housed thousands of manuscripts on science, medicine, philosophy, astronomy, and literature. And according to many accounts, these previous manuscripts were thrown in the Tigris River, and the river ran black with ink as the texts were destroyed. Think about this. You have a river. I know, mashallah, we have Egyptians here. You have the Nile River. When you have a river, how much water, and it's clear, you can see it. How much would it take for that river to be black with ink? The Mongols decimated Bayt al-Hikmah, ran it to the ground, erasing history. How much more could we have benefited? This sacking of Baghdad marked the end of the Islamic Golden Age. Done. So now, the Islamic Golden Age became now the Dark Ages. And when people are saying, Muslims aren't contributing, are we not living somewhat in a dark age? When you ask a random individual, what do you think about Islam? And they tell you, what have Muslims contributed to? We're in a position of inferiority. The idea is this. This is the harsh note I'm going to leave you with. I know it's not a happy-go-lucky, happily ever after. But the fact of the matter is this. As much as Muslims have contributed to society, as much as Islam has contributed to the modern day world, as much as the Muslims have a hand in many of the things that we enjoy today, the fact is we are replaceable. The Mongols sacked the grand institution, the crown jewel of what Islamic golden age is about, the education. If it sacked it, if it was ran to the ground, the rivers black with ink, Allah is giving a very clear message to us, to you and to me, that we are replaceable. As grand as it is, we are replaceable if we're away from the deen. If we're taking a different course. The good news is that we're in the gold rush of technology now more than ever. You have the internet, you have YouTube, you have so many things going. Now more than ever, it's easier to be more influential. You have this gold rush of technology. But the question is, for you and me, what legacy will you leave behind? What contribution will you give to the world? What is something that you will leave? So when the time comes, when you and I return back to Allah Azza wa Jal, what have we done? What have we done? Because we're still part of history. We're still part of history. We still have conversations. History is not over. We're still part of it right now. But it's up to you and it's up to me to figure out how we can change the course of history, to change the narrative, and to make it one video at a time. And I'll end with this. This is me talking here. I'm taking responsibility for my own words. In my own personal accounts that I use on social media, I'm just talking basic things about Islam. You don't need, like, basic. I'm not talking so far. Just having conversations. And sometimes a lot of Christians would show up in these conversations, leaving comments. But let me tell you, some of those comments can get very, very nasty. Incredibly nasty. They can be downright rude, insulting. As much as you try to be respectful, they don't reciprocate it back to you. But you know what's one thing that bothers me and irks me more than anything else? Is when you have those comments and no Muslim stands up to defend it. When no Muslim bothers to share a reply. When Muslims say, you know what, none of my business, let it go. This is exactly why I was saying, collectively as an ummah, we are terrible at marketing Islam. But with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's permission, I pray to see the day, for myself and for us all, that maybe one of you, maybe all of us, can be that source of light, can be that source of goodness, to be that reason why people can look at Islam in a favorable way, that we can smile. And when you ask the average person, what do you think about Islam? That they'll respond with a positive. Yeah, those Muslims are all right. Yeah, Islam is nice. It's up to you. It's up to me. Bit by bit, just ask yourself, what legacy will you leave behind? We have a rich history. Muslims contributed in the past, but the last question I leave you with is, what are we contributing in the present? I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this message is received as intended, and I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us all the strength to be confident and not arrogant, that we're able to be strong for our deen And bi'idhnillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will elevate all of us in Jannat al-Firdaus. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين جزاكم الله خيرا بارك الله فيكم